Okay, we're going live now. Hello, everyone. Looks like there's already some people in the chat. Yes, I am late today. It was raining earlier, so my lunch was delayed. So, whatever. Okay, so you've been following my channel, and if you are a Unity developer, then you're probably aware of the news that Unity changed their pricing model this week, and everybody hates it. So, among other things, I am going to be trying to port some of my previous code into Godot Engine. So my flight simulator project was written in Unity 3D because that's the engine I was familiar with. And I am personally interested in learning Godot, so I'm going to use this as a learning experience. And this, of course, would be useful for anyone else who wants to learn Godot Engine as well. Now, I don't have any experience with Godot. I've only set up like an empty project yesterday. Okay, it's giving me an error on load, which is fine because this doesn't contain any data. So we just have an empty Godot project. So the goal for this is to take the existing flight sim project that I've already written, and then port that to Godot. What the heck? Okay, so the flight sim project was written in Unity. If you're not familiar with it, you can watch the videos on my YouTube channel, or you can read the blog post. But the code is written in C#, and Godot Engine supposedly has good C# support. So this should be possible to port over to Godot, and basically only changing how it interacts with the engine while keeping all the core logic the same. So as you can see, this project is completely blank, and we just need to start. I know the very basics of how Godot works, so. Okay, so this is our empty scene with nothing in it. I guess the very first thing we need to do is import 3D models and possibly import a terrain. From what I know, Godot does not actually have terrain functionality built in, so the only way to do that is with plugins, which I don't actually want to install right now. So it's possible that at least for this session, the only thing that's going to be done is getting the flight model to work. Okay, so there's nothing in here yet. First thing we need to do is actually import files. Okay, I don't actually remember where I put this model file. Hold on. Yeah, I am just digging through my hard drive here to find where I already have the FBX file stored. Okay, so I hope Godot can handle FBX files, because that's what I have right now. And I don't know how this project should be structured. But hopefully if we put an FBX file here, it will import it. Oh my god. Okay, so even FBX, you need to install plugins to do this. I suppose I need to actually close the Godot editor to install this mod. Okay, that's not going to let me do anything. Just going to kill this with a task manager and then install this mod. Well, not a mod, a plugin. Okay, so okay, I think I figured out how this works. I need to actually put this plugin file or this folder somewhere. So this is a lot like modding a game. It's a very weird feeling for this game engine tool. And once we have that, it should be able to launch Godot and then import the FBX file. Yeah, FBX importer has a restrictive license. Yeah, that page from Godot recommends using GLTF2, which I would also prefer, but the data I already have right now is just defined as FBX, so I'm going to stick with this for right now at least. Okay, so that did something. Okay, there we go. So this is the F-15 model that I've been using in my flight sim project, imported into Godot just fine, actually. So we can see with this axis gizmo that this is a different axis setup than what is in Unity 3D. So this looks to be a right-handed -Z forward axis. It's different, but not impossible to deal with. In fact, that basically just means flipping around some sign bits in the flight code. Okay, so maybe I should have watched like a tutorial on Godot or something, because I don't actually know how to do stuff like reading input. It says base path invalid. I don't know what that means. Okay, so I can't put this into a subfolder. I hope that's not the restriction they're implying here. Yeah, okay, so that actually creates our C# file. And this should be roughly equivalent to a mono behavior in Unity 3D. Except we already have compilation errors here. So does this do anything? Okay, this has a script on it, which is plain. Okay, so that was just a spurious compilation error. Okay, it's not letting me create a physics body 3D. I'm not sure why that is. It would be nice if this gave any kind of error that indicates what's going on. Okay, I know that Godot works by having, it doesn't have components like Unity, but it has nodes, which fulfill mostly the same role. What I can't figure out is why I cannot add a rigid body of any kind to this object. This does not give me any information on how to use this. What version am I using? I'm using Godot 4.1. Okay, this is all about 2D objects, which I don't care about. I think you need a physics body 3D with the model and collision nodes as children. Yeah, physics body is an abstract class. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I was just going by the wrong name. The node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. Okay, so we have a rigid body as the root node, then the F15 model as the child node. What's with the entire Unity fiasco and Unity turning into the likes of EA? Well, Unity has the CEO, the former CEO from EA, so I guess that's where they got their monetization ideas. It's kind of been like implied for a long time that Unity would do some kind of monetization, but nobody thought it would be quite as radical as what they went with. A lot of people think that Unity is going to be like walk back and say, "Oh, we decided to listen to the community and abandon our idea of charging per install." And then they do what their real plan was all along, is to just charge a royalty. But it appears that Unity is actually doubling down and sticking with the install fees. So just about every Unity developer that I know about is every Unity developer that I know about is trying to move away from Unity now because it seems like that's the monetization they're going with. Okay, so I know this model consists of multiple parts, but I don't know how to select subparts of it. Okay, yeah, so in the import settings, that's a very dynamic angle for the plane model. But in the import settings, we of course have access to all these individual parts. What I don't know is how to actually make these visible in the scene. Also, I have a question. I used your tutorials to build my own air combat game, but despite trying my best, I just can't understand some parts. Mind if I ask some questions? Sure, you can ask some questions right now. See, I am used to Unity's architecture where every single mesh has its own game object. I don't understand is how to apply that to Godot, where there are multiple meshes here. I can't seem to access them. Okay, Godot might require that I use skeletal animation, which is not how I designed this mesh to be used. So if that's the problem, then that's going to be a problem if that's the case. Probably in the importer settings, there might be a setting there. I don't know. I haven't been able to figure out how to use it yet. For everyone asking, Unity will charge 20 cents per game download. Yeah. So anytime a user installs the game, they're going to charge 20 cents for that. Not only is that a weird way to charge, it's also very difficult to measure when such a install happens. So nobody, including Unity, is quite sure what they're going to do to enforce that. While my game is quite different, the basic flight model is the same. However, I realized that for some reason the rudder behaves as if angular drag doesn't work, despite the code looking fine. Angular drag doesn't really have any effect on the rudder, at least the code that I've written. It's basically just there to reduce any kind of rotation that the control code doesn't automatically reduce. 20 cents per game download, even if it's pirated, by the way. Yep. It's Unity has no way to tell apart legitimate versus pirated copies. Okay, so this might be an issue because I'm using FBX to import this. It might be the Godot only loads a single model from the FBX file. So I would need to actually find the original Blender file that I put this in. I don't remember where I put it. You can change children visibility of node F15 by clicking RMB and check editable children box. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, thank you. So if I do that, okay, so that's how you get the individual meshes there. And then you can also turn off meshes individually as well. Okay, so that works. Yeah, it's just hidden by default, but that works fine. Thank you. Rudder not experiencing angular drag has the effect where the plane just keeps turning even after player releases the rudder controls. I've had planes go completely lose control due to this. The way the rudder control works in the code that I've published is that when you release it, the turning, like the torque that turns the plane automatically stops. So there must be something else adding torque to your plane. Okay, so if we have this, it has a rigid body, or rather it's the child of a rigid body. No main scene has ever been defined. Building the project. Failed to build project. Okay, so yeah, that's the error I was seeing earlier on the C# code. Why do I have two of these tabs? Should only be one C# file. Okay, when I move that, it made a copy of it instead of just moving the file. Okay, there we go. So absolutely nothing's being shown right now because I also remember I did not add a camera or anything. There we go. We have a physics-enabled plane right there. There's also no lighting in the game, even though there's lighting in this scene right here. Okay, so that lighting is just like the default lighting applied to the scene. Ooh, that's not what I want to modify. Okay, so there's our sunlight. Now you need to add a light node to the tree, yep. All right. Need to fix the bad style that's applied by default here. Okay. So this process just gets called every frame, and ready gets called when the object is initialized or when it's added to the scene. So we should be able to fetch objects from the scene or from the node inside the ready function. And then we can apply, for example, rigid body forces inside the process function. Now, I'm not sure if Godot has like a fixed frame rate physics system. It might be that process is just used for all physics. Okay, whatever, that's not important right now. Okay, so that should be able to fetch the parent, which is the parent of the plane node. And then in the process, we can actually, we should be able to apply physics forces. So let's see, just lets us apply a force. I assume that's in the global space coordinates. I'm not sure if that's actually working here. We have a physics process. Okay, that's helpful. Also, how do you know so much about programming? I do wish to learn, but my knowledge is limited as to how. I'm a professional software engineer, so I went to college for programming. I've studied it even before college, and I now work a professional job doing programming full time. Uh, I did learn how to program basically by doing game development, so pretty much what I'm doing right now in Flight Sim and the Flight Sim project in Unity. I was doing projects like that on my own just to learn how to program as far back as high school. So if you are not in college for CS, or if you're not in college at all, you can still learn quite a bit about programming before. Uh, and then if you like go into CS, you can how do I say this? You get like a head start on how much programming knowledge you have. How do you make good audio for aircraft, engine sounds, and such? I don't make any audio myself. I just use asset packs that I buy off the internet. So yeah, I don't know anything about making audio. I just use pre-made sounds. Where is the script attached? Okay, so the plane script is attached to the F15 node, uh, which is a child of the rigid body node. I'm not sure if it's actually possible to attach a script directly to the root, but I don't think it matters that much. Why did you switch from Unity? I wouldn't say that I did switch from Unity. I still, Unity is pretty much the only game engine that I know. I'm learning Godot right now. And for any games that are in progress, I probably won't switch at all, because switching an already built project is way more work than just continuing and releasing it. And this is basically just a learning exercise. Okay, so there should be a physics process as well. That's what Phoenix said. Shouldn't there be a script icon next to the node, or is that only when using GDScript? That might be only when using GDScript, because I am using C# right now. Oh yeah, I need to add a collision shape to this as well. Okay, so we can just edit the size of the box shape right now. And we're just going to use this to roughly map the size of the plane. So there we go. That basically captures the fuselage of the plane. That'd be useful if we ever actually import a ground to crash into, but it's not terribly important right now. It's not attached anymore. There should be a scroll icon on the node for attached scripts. Must have happened when you deleted the original CS file. That's also possible. Oh yeah, there's no script file added to it right now. Okay, there you go. Yeah, there's the scroll file. That's why it was not applying any force earlier. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so that applies a physics force every frame. And if I can figure out how to actually get the physics process to work. Yeah, physics process double delta. Now, why would I call it the base function here? The base function is empty, so whatever. That's not required. Okay, so if we want to actually fly the plane, we need to have the camera pretty much attached to it instead of just being fixed in place. And also, I probably need to add at least like a box to represent the ground so that we have some way to actually orient ourselves in the world. I wonder if there's any like default box objects. We have computational solid geometry. That's probably not a good idea to add. I hope I don't need to actually make a box model or anything. Easiest way to do that is to make a mesh. Yeah, I probably need to just open up Blender and make a box mesh real quick. Hold on, why is the... Oh, that's the entire node. Okay. Recommend any good audio packs on Unity Asset Store, aircraft engine sounds, auto cannons, etc. I mean, there's a lot of them. I don't really have any in particular that I recommend. I only barely used a few of them. I don't remember what their names are right now. And then, yeah, make a mesh, then use the mesh tool in the toolbar to add collision. Sure. Just open up Blender then. So hold on, I don't think I have a way to export GOTF. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, so if I have that, then I should be able to export to here. And it's just simple enough, we can just use GOTF. Okay, how do I refresh this? Or did that even go in the right area? Yeah, there's box GOTF right here. You can make a mesh instance 3D in Godot and then add box and collision. Simple meshes can be added by the mesh instance node. That's also possible. Oh, there. Okay, I don't know what kind of, why that was a delay, but it doesn't matter. Mesh instance. Okay, so that's like a default cube mesh that we can use. What is the scale of this? Okay, that's 1 meter. And then I assume we just add a collision shape to this as well. Okay, now we need to add another rigid body to represent the ground. How can I rename this? Okay. Okay, so that is their... Actually, I don't know what direction this should go. Perhaps a rigid body should be a child to mesh instance. You might want to create a world environment at some point so the sky is like in the viewport. It doesn't look like that by default when you run the game. Yeah, I already noticed that in the game it's just a blank gray background. I think it's a bit misleading that they have this nice looking sky here in the editor, but it's not present in the viewport, but whatever. In the toolbar, while hovering the mesh node, there appears to be a mesh button where you can get Godot to make a collision shape for you. Yeah, I've went with this mesh instance and the collision shape as well. Now we need to set it to box shape. Don't you want a static body for floor? That's possible. So I don't know if there's a separate class for a static body. Yeah, that makes sense. And we can delete the rigid body. Okay, I don't know why this is set by default to correlate all those, but that's not helpful. Okay, there we go. There's our featureless gray plane and our other featureless gray plane. And we need to change the size of this collision shape 3D as well. So that should set the collision box to the same size as the visible mesh. Oh, change the shape of its shape resource instead. Never mind. I need to change this. There's a button on the viewport to show the true preview you'll get instead of the fake one. It's probably one of these buttons then. Yeah, okay. So what was it called? Environment, world environment. Okay, there we go. That sun looks weirdly diffuse, but whatever. So that will create the sky environment. Okay. So I already disabled the code that adds a forward force. So when we start the game, the plane should just fall to the ground. And it does indeed fall and just hit the ground. All right, there we go. We have a physics-enabled plane right now. You have to change the size by clicking on the shape. Yeah. Apparently it doesn't want you to change the scale non-uniformly, which makes sense, I guess. So you need to set it directly onto the collision shape. Okay, so this camera is located kind of behind the plane right now. Is there a way to... Oh yeah, camera preview. Okay. let's see, the FOV, whatever. Near far plane is fine. Perspective projection, Doppler tracking. What does that mean? That's apparently an audio setting. I don't know why that's part of the camera. Yeah, that does Doppler Doppler effect on audio. I guess they don't have a separate audio listener object, but whatever. Michael Evans, we're like 50% done. I wouldn't go that far. We have zero code written right now. And in particular, I don't actually know how to get gamepad input on Godot. I also need to set up the actual game, or the input axes. I hate how this is stringly typed. I don't know how to expose things into the Godot inspector. Okay, that just opens up the plain source code. That's not what I wanted. Input in Godot is good. Yeah. What I don't understand is how to expose variables for the script to read. This is probably should have looked up the basics of how to actually use this engine first. Add export annotation to the field. Okay, I don't know how to actually make sure that a script is compiled properly. That is not what I wanted. I actually need to build it from Visual Studio. Oh, there we go. Okay. Why aren't you using the Flax engine? It's so similar to Unity. I've never heard of the Flax engine. I might look at it, but right now the only thing I'm focused on is Godot. And if it's similar to Unity, that might be possibly easier to learn. Okay, so I assume this is in world space, so this isn't the absolute most correct way to do it. The rotation is a vector 3. I don't like that. Okay, they don't even have a quaternion type. That's annoying. And the only rotation they seem to support is Euler angles. Vec3 should contain quaternion. That doesn't really make sense because quaternion has 4 values. And specifically what I'm trying to do here is rotate this vector by a quaternion. But whatever. Let's see, we can just start copy pasting code and see what happens. I don't remember how my own code works here. Oh, okay, there's the lift function. Update thrust, update lift. So yeah, let's just see what happens if we start putting code in here. Okay, so I need to import, or I need to define all these variables as well. And we don't even have a relative force function, I think. What's the fourth value of a quaternion? I don't actually know how quaternions work. Pretty sure it has quaternions. I hope it does, because that's how most game engines represent rotation. Is a quaternion not just an angle specified in terms of pi? No, it's more complicated than that. I have like textbooks that explain how quaternions work, but I've never understood it. It has to do with like complex numbers and multiple kinds of complex numbers as well. So there must be a way to actually represent a quaternion. Yeah, quaternions are brain melty. Luckily, you don't need to really understand how they work, just to know that they represent rotations. Okay, all I want is to take an Euler angle and get a quaternion from that. Okay, from Euler. I think it's a little bit weird that apparently the internal representation, or the only API that's given, is an Euler angle, and then we have to do the quaternion stuff ourselves. I believe you need quaternion from basis. Isn't the basis axis just like a normalized direction? Okay, that's possible as well. So that just accesses the 3x3 matrix from a transform. That's actually probably better than doing it from here. It should at least be faster because you're not using all the Euler conversion functions. Maybe this will work. Rigid body, global transform, dot basis, get rotation quaternion. And that might also work as well. Oh yeah, this transform is a local space transform, so we do need a global transform. Not applicable. Sup. Yeah, how's it going? Okay, so we need to also translate this square magnitude value, which I'm just using for local velocity here. Length squared. Oh, these are functions and not properties. They're not using C# correctly. I don't really care about flaps right now. This is all stuff I'm going to have to learn myself. Yeah, I assume you're learning Godot as well. So it's like you and everyone else on Twitter is transferring from Unity to Godot. Okay, so calculate state. Let's see. Why are quaternions more useful compared to Euler angles? Quaternion math just ends up being a lot simpler. when you combine it with other representations that you need, like vector threes. So Euler angles have the problem of gimbal lock, which quaternions avoid. Quaternion, like applying a quaternion rotation to a vector is also a lot faster. And it just makes like more mathematical sense, and it's simpler to work with quaternions than by working with Euler angles. Now, Euler angles are better for user-facing stuff, like setting values in the inspector, like here. It's better for these to be Euler angles. But for actual internal code, you want to use quaternions for most calculations. At least the influx of new users might improve Godot 3D at an accelerated rate. Yeah, hopefully. This might be Godot's moment to get a lot more users. Euler angles suffer from gimbal lock. Not good for a plane. Yep. Okay, so we need to translate this as well. Linear velocity. Then we have angular velocity. And we need the calculate angle of attack function. And it uses capital letters for all of these components. At least this API transfers over simply. I hope just converting this code to Godot syntax will work. Yeah, I wrote this code to be pretty simple and like easily transferable to other languages, other APIs. So my hope back when I wrote it was that it could be transferred to something else easily, and now I'm testing that assumption myself. Okay, so we need calculate lift as well. Yeah, so one thing I don't think is going to be easy to set or to translate to Godot is animation curves, just how I was representing a lot of parameters in Unity 3D. There may be something that's equivalent to that in Godot, but I don't know. So for right now, I'm just going to skip that. So vector3.project on plane. I hope there's a function like that. Okay, that's the wrong kind of projection. That projects it onto a normal. I want to project onto a plane, which is a related but different operation. Okay, according to this guy, there's already a plane project method in C++. At least on vector 2. If they have that on vector 2 and not vector 3, that would be weird. They have a curve class, that's good to know. Okay, so we have to construct a plane object first. That's fine. What? Oh, that's the wrong kind of plane. Hold on. Yeah, that's my own plane class. I assume it's under the Godot namespace. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this allows us to set normals. Not sure if it comes with a fancy inspector. Yeah, for the curve class, I hope it comes with inspector, because I don't want to have to like write some kind of custom data or importing right now. After seeing the original video for basic flight sim, I wanted to do one myself, but I only know Godot, so I was struggling with the implementation. This will be really helpful. Yeah, I might turn this into a whole video about the differences between Godot and Unity, but I need to actually learn those differences myself. Okay, so I need to create this plane with the given normal and then project the value onto it. Okay, I hope this is a struct and not a class. Okay, it's a struct, so that should be fairly, that shouldn't cause any more memory allocations there. I need an equivalent for this radian to degree conversion. Okay, so they have it as a function instead of just a constant. Okay, so it's not a static function. This is an instance function. Godot 4's new IDE, where you can pop out scripts, makes it sound a lot more valuable as an IDE over VS Code. Maybe. I haven't used the built-in Godot IDE, and I also don't use VS Code for this either. So I'm going to stick with Visual Studio for now. I got the basics to work relatively well. The current roadblock is working in the steering. I can't ignore mass while applying torque in Godot, so I have to offset the force. You can ignore torque, or you can ignore mass just by multiplying your torque by the mass value. That will at least scale the torque to match the mass. Finally, being able to have the scripting on a separate monitor is really nice. Sure, but I prefer having Visual Studio as a separate window instead. I actually don't like the idea of having the code editor as part of the game editor, but I guess that makes sense for a Godot script. Okay, so these are the curves class I was talking about earlier. These are animation curves in Unity, and Michael Evans mentioned that there's an equivalent called curve in Godot, so I'm going to try to use that. Curve can be saved and reused for other objects, but by default, ranges whatever. So I hope that works. Okay, I'm looking for an equivalent to the evaluate function in Unity 3D, which I don't know if this is even an equivalent class. I should actually look up the API for that. That's all Godot script. That's definitely a downside, is that everything is defined in terms of Godot script. Okay, it would be called sample. Yeah, sample should do it. Oh yeah, I can't actually compile this right now because I still need to fix a bunch of other errors. Okay, so I need to add a couple more parameters here. Okay, so since Godot uses a different handedness on their coordinate system, I need to negate the .z of the velocity in order to make this code work. But I think that should be fine for now. For a flight sim, performance on the level that C# would provide isn't really necessary. It's always a good idea to have just maximum performance. Like, especially if you want to add multiple planes into your game, then you might start really feeling the pain from having writing it in Godot script. But for just what we're doing right now, it's not really that important. But the reason I'm sticking with C# is because the code's already written in C#, and I'm more familiar with that language. Okay, so we can create new curves here. And I think this actually allows you to like save and then reuse the same curve in multiple locations. Actually, let's try doing that. Positive Z being backwards drives me insane. Oh, it's Y485. Oh, nice to see you too. Uh, yeah, I know you're working on Tiny Combat. I guess you don't have any plans to move that into Godot. You're way too deep in that project. Okay, so lift. Okay, so this allows us to create a curve, which can then be shared in different places. Okay, that's actually really nice. I don't think there's anything like that in Unity. And this is a feature that I've always wanted because that makes it very easy to reuse this data. Just think of positive Z being the way thrust goes. Okay, so this allows us to edit the curve, and for the AOA, I was normalizing it, so 1 is the maximum value here. Okay, and again, this is actually a much nicer editor than what Unity gives you. The animation curve editor in Unity is really, really annoying to use. Wait, so how do you set the input values here? Let you set the max values for the y-axis. I don't see how to set it on the x-axis. One thing that made me choose Godot over Unity, everything you make can be used again in a way I found it hard to do in Unity. Yeah, this is a feature that is actually really nice to have. That makes it very easy to reuse data across multiple prefabs, let's say. But let's see. That's not relevant. So does sample only work in the range 0 to 1? Maybe it's based on the points? I don't think so, because I can't actually move this point to a different direction. I can't move it beyond the 0 on the x-axis. If I set it to a negative value, it doesn't accept it either. So that I might have to like write a function that translates the range of AOA values into a 0 to 1 range, which is really annoying. Okay, at least according to this, which was written a month ago, it only supports the range 0 to 1. So that's kind of annoying. Well, we can map 0 to negative pi and then 1 to pi, and then we should be able to handle this easily. By pi, I mean in terms of radian measurement. So that should, we can get around this range issue. Yeah, x-axis is only in the range 0 to 1. I mean, Godot is open source, so maybe that's something to be updated in the future. Actually, that might be something that I can work on. I forgot what happened the last time I tried Godot that I got filtered by. I think it was something physics related, but I forgot. Yeah, I tried to do Unreal Engine as well, but I got hard filtered by just the way their object model works. I think it's kind of like Godot, but just way less documented, way less intuitive to use, and I don't like Unreal Engine. But so far, Godot has been pretty pleasant to use. Okay, so if we set these curve values, we know the ends are going to be at 0. And now we can actually just create a lift curve that looks kind of like this. Okay, there is one thing that's nice about Unity's editor is that it gives you like a pop-out window to edit these curves in. This is really small and I can't actually see what's going on here. hold on. Since we have to map the angles into the range 0 to 1, I need to actually do math on what values I need to set these numbers to. It's kind of hard to read what I'm doing here. It's kind of weird how similar Godot and Unreal in being. Yeah, the way their object model works is actually pretty similar. But so far, Godot has been way more pleasant to use. Learning Unreal uses centimeters instead of meters for everything today. Yeah, that was fucked up about Unreal Engine. They're like using centimeters. That's like something. Well, I guess it's because Unreal Engine is from like the 90s originally. So, and they also have that weird coordinate system as well. If you've seen Freya Homer's coordinate system infographic, Unreal is the only one that uses like a Z up left-handed system, which is really weird compared to basically everything else. But yeah, I found Unreal very unpleasant to work in. You could drag it bigger, I think. I mean, I can make this window bigger. That does make it easier to work with, but I don't want to modify the actual inspector window that much. Hold on. Okay, so I need to calculate what value to set this element at to represent an AOA of like 30 degrees. So let's see. This side of the curve needs to represent a range of 0 to, let's say, 90. So this one needs to be roughly 1/3 of the way there. Actually, that needs to be 0.666. Okay, that's not very helpful. That is absolutely annoying how it just moves everything around. I made a typo when I put that number in, and then it just fucked up all my values. Okay, but let's see. At this AOA value, we have maximum lift. And then this AOA value, we need to have minimum lift. Okay, so that looks like an AOA curve. So instead of being 0 to 180 degrees, we're going to do 0 to 90. And that should make it easier. I don't actually know how to make this smaller now. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so that sets up the same AOA curve on both the lift and the rudder AOA. And then let's see, we are sampling it right here. So we need to make a new function for that. Okay, so this at least is pretty simple. induced drag, we also have to come up with a different sampling range for that as well. I think resizing the inspector scales the elements like Blender does. Yeah, I can resize the inspector as well. But having an actual pop-out window does make it a little bit easier to edit the curve, but that's ultimately pretty minor. I think Unreal applies force in newtons as well, which means if you want to apply any force in any field value, you're going to be using scientific notation. Okay, actually I learned recently that Unreal doesn't use newtons. They use a different force entirely, which is like the equivalent of pounds force, but in metric, and it's called kilo force. So that's not the same way as newtons, but it's like a unit that pretty much nobody uses in the scientific community, so almost nothing written about it. Oh, action scripter is here too, nice. Okay, so we have this function that translates the AOA curve into their 0 to 1 range. We also need to do that for the induced drag curve. I don't remember what induced drag curve actually represents here. Oh wait, that's the amount of drag you have per airspeed. Okay, okay. So I don't know how to do that because like what is the maximum value going to be here? 0 is obviously 0 meters per second, but 1 is going to be some maximum value there. So I guess we need to add a parameter here that says what the maximum induced drag speed is. I bet Tim Sweeney did this. Yeah, I have seen Tim Sweeney on Twitter talking about the decisions he made in the Unreal Engine. Like I saw him specifically talking about using the left-handed coordinate system. Okay, let's see. Induced, well, we also need this for the drag curve as well. Induced drag curve max speed. I guess we also need induce drag curve for the rudder. Okay, then we need to make a new function to sample the curve. Wait, that's not right. Oh, I just realized this is not correct. I need to set this to 0, 1 as well. That's the other half the problem I need to solve for that. Hold on, I'll return that in a second. Okay, so the curve only maps the range 1 or 0 to 1. However, AOA can be negative, which means we need to map the range -90 to 90 into the range 0 to 1, which is not that difficult. Let's see, I need to divide by 2 and then add 0.5. Okay, so that should actually be the proper way to map it to the 0 to 1 range. Did you already deal with Godot's inbuilt drag dampening? I did not, and that's a good question. So if it's simple enough, we should just be able to disable any kind of drag that's on here. Yeah, linear damping is already set to 0. And angular damping is also set to 0. So that's the drag force they're using. Yeah. This is actually equivalent to Unity's drag force because Unity does not use a physically based drag. So that should be fine. But just leaving those at 0. Okay, so value over 2, 0. Plus 0.5. Yeah, I think that's the correct way to map it. Okay. And since we're using the induced drag curve, we need to sample that right here. Okay, so that should correctly map these values onto the Godot curve class. Now I don't actually have a way to measure what any of those values are going to be. I need to add a HUD at some point, and that means I need to learn how Godot's HUD system or their GUI system works. Disabling is almost always the right move. Unity drag model is so trash. I've never been able to make it work in a reasonable way. Yeah, Unity's drag model is not linearly based, or it's not physically based, so it's called linear damping, which is completely unrelated to drag. Why not UE5? I don't know Unreal Engine 5. I've used it just a little bit and I did not like it, so I'm using Godot instead. If you fling an object through the air with high drag, it will literally slow down until it's floating down. Yeah, I agree with Y485. Their drag model is very weird in behavior. So I don't actually know if this is going to work properly. I don't have a way to measure the speed or AOA or anything. So yeah, it just hits the ground and then looks like it comes to a dead stop. Actually, that's probably friction that's causing it to come to a stop right now. I don't know how you set friction on contact. Might be part of the collision shape. Well, that's not very important. Just don't hit the ground and it won't be an issue. So I need a way to actually measure whether or not this is being applied in any way. Let's see. I am applying the initial speed. I'm not applying thrust yet, but that should be fine. So initial speed, let's set that to 100 meters per second, which I believe is 200 knots. You can change the friction at the physics material. Is that part of the rigid body or the collision shape? Well, okay, yeah. I'm just going to skip that for now because I want to make sure the flight model actually works. Okay, it's moving forward. I couldn't tell whether or not there's any lift being generated. Hold on. I wonder if there's an equivalent to Unity's debug class. Oh, you just have to write your own debug code? That's really annoying. This is written 5 years ago, so hopefully there's a better solution by now. Okay, this solution is functionally equivalent, but I don't want to do all that work. Rigid body, physics material override. Oh, right here. Oh, there you go. So you set friction to 0, bounce to 0. That's useful. All right. Okay, so that solves the friction problem. The other thing is I don't know how to. Oh wait, I just realized I set the induced drag curve. I wrote the function for it. I did not actually set up this curve. Let's see. I want the drag to be 0 at 0 and maximum value at whatever. Let's see. Induced drag max speed. I don't want to model stuff like transonic drag, so let's just say that you hit the max speed at 100 meters per second for both drag and induced drag. And note that this is not the actual drag value, but just the scaling coefficient. So it still scales with velocity, but this just changes it so that it makes it like closer to 0 when your speed is lower. Okay, so hold on. ChatGPT. I'm not going to use ChatGPT for this. You can pause the game and use the inspector on remote to check the values. And it's also possible. See, I don't want to use immediate geometry because that means adding another object to the scene graph. Okay, apparently this is the only option. So whatever. Let's look up immediate geometry. Okay, that's not even available. Yeah, I don't. If immediate mesh is not available, then I'm not sure what else I can use to draw any kind of debug line. Procedural geometry. Okay, why do I not have this available? Okay, whatever. We can just add like a cube mesh that will represent, we can just change the scale of this mesh in order to visualize how much lift we're generating. One thing I will give to UE is how easy it is to create debug tools visualizations in 3D during runtime. These are the kind of things Godot is lacking in with 3D. Is it a 2D only feature? I sure hope not, because that is a very useful tool to have, is being able to draw debug lines. Let's see, this is type mesh instance. So I guess this is the equivalent of using debug draw in Godot. You need to actually find the object in the scene and then modify it. You can get child by index. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay, this is really annoying. I found 3D annoying to work with in Godot. It feels underdeveloped compared to Unity and Unreal. When I've brought this up and searched for complaints, they said working as intended. Yeah, I heard that 3D is still kind of a second-class citizen in Godot. So, like as we're seeing right now, there's no debug tools. You have to go through this entire rigmarole to actually draw something useful. So, I don't even want to fetch this at runtime. I just want to draw a lift curve, or a lift value. So we have the lift force right here. Adding a control node slider progress bar and having that show lift or something, or a label instead of scaling a cube. Godot doesn't want to copy Unreal and Unity for how easy it is to use their math libraries, because copying is bad, I guess. Can you not just use print? Yeah, I can use print or I can use the progress bar, but I don't really want to do any of those. Well, I guess printing would be a little bit simpler than what I'm doing right now, but I just wrote it. So let's see if that actually works. Actually, you know what? I just realized the other problem is that I'm not actually calling any of these functions. Okay, and now we're getting a bunch of errors on the debugger. What the heck? Null reference exception. Okay, so I left that as a null reference. Oof, I know that one. Yeah, sometimes when your code doesn't work, it's because you're not calling your code. Okay, this, I don't know what that's showing. Condition v is infinite is true. Okay, that's a problem. Hold on, let's only apply a lift force for right now. Then we can actually debug what the lift function is doing. I don't know if this actually works with the debugger like this. Okay, it's not actually showing the cube, so I think that means it's a negative value. But I don't know why it just got launched off the, it got launched backwards. Oh, initial speed should be negative because they're using negative z as forward. Okay, I don't know how to combine this with the, I don't know how to launch the debugger from here. Okay, so you can't launch it from Visual Studio. Yeah, how do I inspect these values live? When I launch it, it launches the new window. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Remote local. That only appears when I actually launch the game, but it doesn't appear to connect to anything. Wait, it's okay, it's updating the values live. But then this isn't being, oh, it's being set to 0. Okay, so it is modifying the lift. I think the other issue is I didn't actually set a value for lift power. On the top right where you play this scene, there might be a debug option. Pause the game once launched, and in the inspector on the left side, click on remote. Yeah, so I just figured out. Remote lift. Scale is set to 1. Okay, so I might just go with that print option instead of trying to set this value. But it would be extremely useful to be able to display a line in 3D space just from code. That's definitely a sore spot that's missing from the Godot API right now. Okay, it just keeps on printing out 0. So something about this function is causing it to output 0. Okay, again, I need to figure out how to actually debug the C# code. Well, I'm not using VS Code. Debugging C# in Godot is not provided. That's alarming. Yeah, this is what I meant when I said that C# support is, it's like a second-class citizen. I'm not going to watch a YouTube video. I'm not using VS Code. C# being a second-class citizen is why I've also been very skeptical of using anything other than Godot script. Yeah, they definitely made Godot script the main, like they want you to use Godot script. What is this thing? Menu debug properties. There's no debug properties here. But like it makes sense. You wouldn't Unity and complain about the lack of Python support. Uh, no, C# is way better than Godot script, so I very much want to use C# instead. And that's the main reason I've avoided Godot for so long. It's because C# support was like barely working for a long time. Godot script also performs a bit better than C# for things like moving transforms. I kind of doubt that, but I haven't used either of them extensively. So, okay, I just tried to follow this guide, but the very first step doesn't work. Okay, do I need to do the attach to process thing here? Okay, that worked. Okay. So we're getting lift of 0. Lift velocity is non-zero. Lift coefficient is 0. Okay, so that means that whatever we're sampling inside of AOA curve is not working properly. So our AOA is 135. Oh, I messed up when I was translating these values. Yeah, I'm doing this a tan 2 on y of both on y for both arguments. That's not correct. It should be y and z. Rather, it should be negative z. Lift is still being set to 0 here. I believe the Godot script is faster than C# in doing things like getting children parents because it has shortcuts built in that C# doesn't have. Okay, that's possible. I know Godot script is at least implemented directly in C++, so that gives it some more ability to talk with low-level parts of the engine. But okay, we have this. We're calling this with a non-zero value, 128. That's definitely not correct. So something about how I'm calculating the angle of attack is not working properly. Okay, 182,000 meters per second. I think this plane just got launched into infinity, and it's no longer in a sensible position. Yeah, it's traveling at 8,000 meters per second, which is the Earth's escape velocity. So the physics code is not working properly. The annoying thing is I can't actually get the debugger to run at the very start. Because you can't attach the process until the process launches. Heck, the plane burnt up an atmosphere before launching. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong with the physics code here that's causing it to just shoot off into space immediately, like on frame 1. And the poor debugger support doesn't help. So I have a feeling that it's because of this negative z value. On the range tau over 2 to tau 2. Okay, so they're defining their units in tau. That's funny. Do you use add central force or apply central force? Using add caused my plane to get way too fast. I'm using apply central force. What would add cause? Add constant central force. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the one that was causing your problem. It might be that you're just adding multiple constant forces. I don't know. Anyways, something about how I'm calling math.atan2. Oh wait, since this is negative tau to tau, is it defined in terms of radians? Is that how Unity defines it? No, this is also radians. Okay, is there a way to go frame by frame in Godot? Build in a debug pause. Okay, that thread that I just read on Reddit said to use Godot script, which is possible. You can't add multiple scripts to a node here, so I'm not sure where I would put that. Okay, there we go. That is the only way to go frame by frame in Godot. Now that we have that launched, we can actually attach to the process. And then, how do I continue this? There we go. So we're calculating angle of attack to be 3 radians. That's definitely not good. Okay, that's because we're using positive Z. If we set that to negative Z, we should get different behavior now. Okay, by setting it to negative Z, it's now at 2 radians, which is still pretty bad. Okay, hold on. We're using math.atan, using the negative y value and the negative z value here. I do wonder if you'd have a better time just using GDScript and then leverage all the tight integration in the editor. I really want to stick to C sharp, because if I'm going to use Godot at all, I'm definitely going to be writing in C sharp. And the fact that I have to do hacks like adding this debug script, that's annoying but workable for now. But yeah, I definitely I definitely feel that C# is still a second-class citizen in Godot. So I'm calling this atan function incorrectly. The arctangent of y and x in radians. I might need to negate the y value. Okay, that's a little more sensible. We're at 0.9 radians. I'm trying to figure out what value that is in degrees. It's about 51 degrees, which is actually quite large for an AOA value. Oh, even on frame 1, his velocity is being set to negative 20,000. So actually, there may be an issue with how I'm calculating velocity. No, it's just going off into space already. Okay, something inside a lift is still causing this to go to extreme values right at start. Okay, so I'm going to disable applying forces for now and just printing out the values for lift and AOA. I need to re-enable this function. Oh, you know what the problem is? Or what it might be, is that I'm applying induced drag in the wrong direction. So as the plane goes faster, it keeps on getting stronger. Because negative z is forward in Godot. Oh, and also I set lift power of 150, which is the value that I just kind of remember that I set that on the the Unity flight sim. But I also set the mass of the Unity flight sim to a different value, so I need to adjust that as well. If I'm applying a very large mass or a very large force to a mass of 1 kilo, that's going to cause it to go crazy as well. Anti-drag. Yeah, the faster you go, the more drag force to boost your speed. How the heck do you set drag? What is this value? Inertia. Am I going crazy or is there no mass field here? Oh, there it is. I thought I scrolled all the way up. That's allows you to go up to 1,000 kilos just in the inspector. I need to go back to my code or to my repo and see what value I was using. I'm using 20,000 as the value. Okay, so at least Godot accepts that. Okay, I think it is applying the force correctly now. I just still have no way to actually tell whether or not that's enough force to make any kind of decent flight. Hold on, I can actually just rotate the plane to point upwards slightly. Wow, that is a really sensitive slider. The range is from negative 360 to 360. Okay, I think that's actually flying because that value is not descending very quickly. Hold on, I need to apply thrust to the plane as well. Which is just a very simple calculation here. And we're just going to set throttle equals 1 for right now. Okay, they do have a forward value, which is -1. So this should apply an engine thrust and allow the plane to continue flying. What the heck was that giant thing that just popped up? Oh, their document string contains an enormous source code sample. Interesting. Okay, so if we apply thrust, we should be able to actually cause the plane to fly and not lose altitude. Yeah, it looks like it's actually flying. It does still slowly lose altitude, but it's a very slow loss. Oh, also, I think I forgot to actually set a thrust value. So even without the thrust, it's actually maintaining level flight. Or, well, not level flight, but it's still maintaining a decent flight. Like, it's only slowly losing altitude. Yeah, here's the thrust value I was using in the Unity code. Yeah, it's slowly gaining speed. It's actually quite slow because that should be maximum thrust, but whatever. And it is actually gaining altitude as well. All right, so it is flying now. Yeah, so by applying engine thrust as well, we are now maintaining altitude. The engine thrust seems pretty weak even on this value. But maybe I'm using the wrong units. Yeah, we are 4,000 meters away from the origin and gaining altitude. So it is flying properly, all right. Okay, I need to actually figure out what units they're applying as a forced, because I may not be applying the right one. Okay, thank you. Oh, because the documentation is all in terms of Godot script. It doesn't say what unit it's using, which is annoying. Force is in newtons, which is what I was expecting. So it might just be that I have a very high induced drag value right now. No, induced drag is set to 0 still. So I'm not sure where the actual drag is coming from that makes it so slow. But anyways, I think that should be a good place to stop. I actually got the flight code working. Doing stuff like HUD and player input is going to take a lot more work. So I think just getting the flight code working is a good stopping place for today. So thank you, everybody. That's actually a lot more people joined than I thought. Got up to almost 20 concurrent viewers. And some interesting characters dropped in as well. I might continue this next week, but I needed to spend more time learning about how the Godot API works. So if I'm going to stream next week, it's going to be on a Saturday as well. Probably same time in the afternoon. If you want to join, and maybe I can I'll come in a little better prepared and understand how to use the input and the GUI system. So thank you all for joining. That's everything for today. Goodbye.